It is Tuesday, October 27th, 2020, and this is Truly News. I am your host, Jason Van Sickle. This week, we launched the Truly News print edition, which features the stories that you are about to hear, along with links to the original articles. Check out our new print edition at trulynews.org. Now, on to today's headlines. As always, we start with a quick rundown of the top headlines from the nation's largest newspapers. From USA Today, on Monday, Amy Coney Barrett became the 115th Supreme Court Justice. Trump returned from the campaign trail for the ceremony, which was officiated by Justice Thomas. From the Wall Street Journal, Barrett was sworn in as the newest Supreme Court Justice yesterday, creating a Supreme Court with a broad conservative majority for the first time since the 1930s. From the New York Times, just 8 days from the election, Senate Republicans ignored Democrats' unanimous opposition and voted Barrett to the Supreme Court after a short approval process. From the Los Angeles Times, 2 fires fueled by high winds overran Orange County on Monday, forcing the evacuation of 90,000 people and critically injuring 2 firefighters. And from the Washington Post, in a 52-48 party line vote among a bitterly divided Senate, on Monday, Amy Coney Barrett became the 5th woman to be named to the 231-year-old Supreme Court. And here are the stories that are crossing the wire at Reuters News. On Monday, oil companies evacuated offshore oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico as the 27th named storm of this season became a hurricane and headed for the U.S. Gulf Coast. And also from Reuters, the White House is expected to announce a plan this week for Medicare and Medicaid recipients to receive coverage for the costs related to any future COVID vaccine. And those are your top headlines for today. And now, here is our announcer, Ron Johnson, with a word from today's sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Chef Lenny Wienerschnitzel with his new Spam and Clams restaurant. Spam and Clams offers the newest in trendy fusion cuisine with dishes like lobster bisque on soy-flavored top ramen, Spanish pheasant with pork rind crust, and their signature fried Spam with baked Mississippi River mud clams. Thank you to Spam and Clams Restaurant for today's sponsorship.
Thank you, Ron. And now we return to today's news. In science news, from Science Daily, new research by environmental scientists into 1-million-year-old sediment suggests that instability in the environment caused early humans to take an evolutionary leap 320,000 years ago. It is believed that environmental challenges affected food and water supplies, causing humans to adapt by creating new tools and technologies. In technology news, from MIT Technology Review, in an example of its advertising approach, Facebook is helping presidential campaigns target users by providing information that includes personal traits and preferences. Using very specific search filters, campaigns are now able to micro-target potential voters on Facebook in an effort to persuade, mobilize, and fundraise. In space news, from spacenews.com, 2 new Chinese rocket companies have announced partnerships with local governments to invest hundreds of millions into research and production. This is part of China's commercial efforts to advance new technologies that will enable the country to improve its ability to launch satellites and compete in the rapidly advancing space industry. And that is your science, technology, and space news for today. And now it is time for our joke of the day, presented by my friend and comedian Billy Potbelly Cunningham. And here's Billy.
Thank you, Jason. This is Billy Potbelly Cunningham with your fake news joke of the day. And here we go. This just in. Following press reports over the weekend that individuals working for Vice President Pence tested positive for the COVID, the Vice President made the following statement. After the President's miraculous recovery from COVID and his recent comments at packed campaign events, I decided to ease White House safety protocols. I thought that COVID was over. So, would somebody please tell me what's going on? This is so confusing. Get Dr. Fauci back and get me a mask.
Oh, poor guy. Hang in there, Pensy.
Well, that is your fake news joke of the day. Until next time, be kind to others, be good to yourself, and keep on smiling. This is Billy Potbelly Cunningham. Over and out.
Thanks, Billy. We now return to our review of the day's news. In health news, from Science Magazine, after meeting last week, the advisory group for the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on issues related to vaccine development raised concerns over the government's push to rapidly develop a vaccine. Sheldon Tubman, an attorney and consumer representative on the FDA committee, said, quote, "There's only one chance to do this right," unquote. In social news, from the Gallup polling agency, optimism about Black Americans' opportunities is falling, even though a majority of people still believe that Black and white Americans have equal opportunities in education, housing, and jobs. That optimism is decreasing. A recent survey found that the number of people who believe opportunities are equal has reached a 30-year low. In environmental news, from The Guardian, alarm is growing among environmentalists and scientists that the Arctic Sea has not yet entered its annual cycle of refreezing. Following record-breaking heat that saw a season with ocean temperatures 5 degrees Celsius above normal, the area of the Arctic Sea near Siberia is now seeing the longest delay on record of the polar region's refreezing. And that is your health, social, and environmental news for today. Now it is time for our Words of Wisdom with philosophy professor Dr. Albert Feinstein. And here is Dr. Feinstein.
Thank you, Mr. Van Sickle. Hello, and welcome. Today's words of wisdom come from Sir Francis Bacon, who said, "Wise individuals make more opportunities than they find." This quote points out an important fact of our human existence. Opportunities are most often discovered and not stumbled across. If you want to find success in this life, then you need to seek out opportunity. It is there to find, but you won't find it unless you are looking. So be proactive, take charge, and determine your own success in life by working hard and searching
for opportunities. And those are your words of wisdom for today. Until next time, keep seeking wisdom and believing in your incredible potential. Good luck.
Thank you, Dr. Feinstein. We appreciate your words of wisdom and your encouragement. Now, we return to our review of today's news. In economic news, from the Wall Street Journal, this week the U.S. will release its most recent gross domestic product figures. The GDP is the total of all goods and services sold, and it is a key economic indicator. This week we'll also see the release of new monetary policy from Japan and the European Union. All of these indicators should provide insight into the future of the global economy. In world news, from Bloomberg, China's new economic plan may push it past the United States. Last week, China released its new 5-year economic plan, which will focus on technological innovation, self-reliance, and environmental issues. With an economy that has been rapidly growing, some estimate that China will become the world's largest economy within the next 10 years. And that is your economic and world news for today. In entertainment news, we start with new movies, and today's movie is Unhinged, starring Russell Crowe, Karen Pistorius, and Gabriel Bateman. This movie falls into the categories of action and thriller. And here is the description from IMDb. After a road rage confrontation with an unstable man at an intersection, a woman becomes the focus of his anger and rage at the world. Unhinged is now available for rental on multiple streaming services. Moving on, in newly released shows, today's show is The Third Day, starring Jude Law, John Daglish, and Patty Considine. This series falls under the categories of drama, mystery, and thriller. And here is the description from IMDb. This show chronicles the individual journeys of a man and woman who arrive on a mysterious island at different times. The story is told over 6 episodes in 2 distinct halves. The Third Day is now showing on HBO Max. Finally, in entertainment news, we look at newly published books. And our book for today is The Institute by Stephen King. This book is presently number 2 on the New York Times paperback trade fiction bestseller list. And here is a summary from Amazon. From the number 1 New York Times best-selling author Stephen King, the most riveting and unforgettable story of kids confronting evil since his bestseller, It. The Institute is now available at your local bookstore and in print, audiobook, and Kindle formats on Amazon. And that is your entertainment news for today. As always, we end our broadcast with Hope for Humanity, stories about the goodness and kindness that people show each other every day. And here is today's story. In a continued look at the Minnesota Star Tribune series on Heroes of the Pandemic, today's story is about Chris Montana. Throughout the pandemic and the months of social unrest, Chris has stayed dedicated to serving his community. At the start of COVID, he worked to provide supplies like hand sanitizer. Throughout the pandemic and through the social unrest of the protests, he also worked within his African American community to help feed over 400 families daily. His motivation? He simply wants to create a better world for his 3 sons to grow up in. And that is your news for October 27th, 2020. Have a wonderful day.